This is Royce Hall, your host of the Coffee Dreaming Podcast, your online network for sales leaders, operations leaders, marketing leaders connected to the Salesforce ecosystem. Thank you for listening, and be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Hi, I'm Royce Hall, your host of the Coffee Dreaming Podcast, and I'm joined today by Alan Grosheider. Great to have you here today, Alan.
Hey, Royce. How's it going?
Going well. And Alan, you are the founder and chairperson of Blue222. Tell me a little bit about Blue 222. And I always like to ask people, like, what is your why behind that? What's your personal passion behind what you're doing?
Yeah. So what we are doing is trying to solve the slowest part of the largest asset class in the world. So that the slowest part is, so it's real estate. That's the largest asset class in the world. And the slowest part of a real estate transaction is the due diligence. So I'm talking about any sort of inspection, appraisals, environmental inspections, building inspections, surveys, home inspections, pest inspections. It slows down every real estate transaction, and it's literally done the same way it's been done since the 1990s. I mean, and that's not even a slight exaggeration. It's emails and spreadsheets, and then in the smallest case, which is individual purchasing a home. Usually a realtor hands you a piece of paper with a bunch of home inspectors and appraisers and pest inspectors, and you start calling and you schedule for them to come do the site, the inspections. Um, so what we are building is a platform and marketplace that every real estate oriented company can plug into, that makes those things happen like magic. It just gets them done instantaneously. Um, and you ask what's my passion for this? Yeah, I started a company years ago called ESA1 that was an environmental inspection company. We ended up raising venture capital, building a nationwide company, and and we operated all throughout the United States and a little bit in other countries. And we had a great system. We were very high tech for the time, but the logistics technology was not quite where it is today. So we were still doing most of the actual on the ground scheduling of people by email. But if you look at the other end of the spectrum, you've got I mentioned realtors handing you a piece of paper. There are companies that do 25,000 inspections per month, and that may be environmental inspections, building inspections, all over the country. And they're doing them for large banks, large lenders, lawyers, real estate companies. So they're doing this work all over the place. And the way that they do it still to this day is they send out an email that may have 200 properties listed, and they'll send that out to 1,000 vendors, environmental inspectors, for example. And they'll say, which of these can you do an environmental inspection on, and how much, and when can you get it done? And then all of the bids are coming back to one email address, and they've got 30 people that are sorting those emails and putting the bids into spreadsheets, and then emailing them back and saying, okay, you got this job, you got this job. So what we built, these companies could take our software today, and this afternoon I could have them take the 30 people that they currently have doing that work, import their vendors, and they could be up and running and probably get the same amount of work done with 3 people. Because our system just does all of the back and forth is done automatically. All of the emails, there's no, they would never have to actually send an email again. Our system does everything. So that's the passion for me, was that I've been in this industry for a long time, and I just see what a mess it is and how far behind it is. And then once we kind of got into it and we really started building this and we started working with some large clients, we're onboarding a $6 billion client right now.
Oh,
One
wow.
of the largest, probably possibly the largest inspection company on the planet. And they have the same problems. They do everything by email. But what we're finding is that it's such an enormous market, in such need of being fixed, that if we find the right ways to automate everything, which now with AI and AI machine learning, but then also AI agents, those are going to be big parts of our system. We'll be able to fix a lot of problems for the big companies, but then all the way down to the small companies, we'll make it, we're the same technology will allow an individual realtor to upload that same piece of paper with all of their home inspectors and appraisers on it, and then just automate the home inspection part. So now you're buying a house, you sign a contract, and 5 minutes later, your home inspection, your appraisal, and your pest inspection are scheduled, and nobody had to pick up a phone.
Wow.
So that's sort of the grand vision of where we're going. We've got step one done, which is a system that automates everything for the big companies. Well, and even small companies. So we have very small companies that are using it for the same purpose, to manage work all over the place. But then we're building the AI agents that automate all the way down to that individual realtor level.
That's incredible. I've been in my current house for just over 2 years, like 2.5 years, and going through buying this house and going through that process and then selling the old one. Like I remember how painful that was at
Yeah.
times. And I see that my company, we do a lot of Salesforce consulting work in like financial services, and that like onboarding and the back and forth, like there is so much pain there. So that's awesome that you're building agents and AI that are going to help speed that along. That's incredible.
Yeah, and the onboarding that you mentioned, that's a big part and a bigger piece of what we are building than we originally thought. As we work with these larger clients, we're realizing that it's a nightmare, the onboarding process, because they've developed over time very onerous processes for screening and onboarding and vetting their vendors, which is great from a quality standpoint, but it's really tough for the vendors. The vendors don't like it very much. They have to jump through a whole lot of hoops and fill out 4 pages of PDF forms, and I mean,
Mm-hmm.
literally stuff like that. Um, and so that's one piece that we are building, and we're working with these large firms to do it. It would be AI agents that do the onboarding. So now, if you're an environmental vendor or you're an appraiser that's being invited by a company to receive inspection work through Blue222, rather than have to fill out forms or go to a website and fill out forms, send in resumes, all that stuff, you'll just talk to an AI agent, and that AI agent will say, upload your resume, upload a sample report, upload a photo that you want to use, and a few things like that. Describe your, what kind of business you do. Give us a list of all the types of services that you do, and then it will build your profile on Blue222. It will screen you to make sure that you meet the qualifications of whichever client, all of our clients. And then it'll set you up to do work for any client that you're qualified to do work for. And, to me, that's going to be, nobody cares about what the vendor experience is. I don't want to say nobody, but a lot of companies, they're sort of like, well, hey, if you're lucky enough to get work from us, you'll bend over backwards and do it the way we tell you to. We don't really see it that way. We see it, hey, we want to make it so awesome for the vendors that they want all of their clients to send their work to them through Blue222, because we're doing everything for them. We don't, right now, if you're an appraiser or an environmental inspector, you go out and you work all day. You come home and you write reports, and then at the end of the day, you spend 2 hours answering emails and bidding on projects. That's the way you get your work. Well, imagine if we just completely eliminate that 2 hours of work that you have to do at the end of the day every day. It's all automated. You can set some parameters and we'll bid it for you. So that's where we're going.
That's great. That sounds like an awesome tool for your vendors and your small your small business people. Like I think of your vendors who are maybe they're solopreneur or a small company, and that's a burden to do the work all day, do the fulfillment, and then have to turn around and do all the sales and marketing in the evening.
Yep.
That relieves that quite a bit.
Yeah, and you mentioned something that I didn't, which is the sales and marketing. I mean, yeah, they're bidding projects, and that's a pain in the butt. But I mean, these people probably, 99% of them probably hate sales and marketing. They enjoy their work. They enjoy
Sure.
going out to do an environmental assessment or a home inspection. They enjoy interacting with the people when they're there. That's why they do that business. That's why they're not a salesperson or a marketing person. That's not the work that they enjoy. So that's another piece that we're taking off of their plate. Imagine if you were exposed to all of every client on Blue222 that has work in your area. It could be a local firm that's right down the street that's sending you work. It could be an international firm that's based in London that's sending you work. What do you care? But you're sure as heck not going to. You're probably not going to land that client in London if you're just doing your own sales and marketing.
Sure.
So that's where we see a big part of what we're doing, benefiting everybody, is if you just imagine, like, Tetris game. There's everything's flying around all over the place, and right now it's done very manually. So with AI machine learning, we're just putting all the pieces in the right place. So now if you're an appraiser, your schedule is as full as you want it to be, and you don't have to do any sales and marketing. You don't have to do any scheduling. You just show up and you do your work. That's where we want to get.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, let me shift the conversation a little bit. One of the things that you mentioned earlier is that you've been going through capital raising, funding.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to dig into that a little bit. I'm sure that there's people that are listening to this podcast who are building their own brand. So, maybe what are a couple of things that you've learned along the way that maybe you wish somebody had told you earlier on, or you figured out earlier on about building your own brand and doing that fundraising?
So okay. So for well, just the things that popped into my mind when you asked me that question would be, um, if you're building a product like this, the first thing I would recommend is find a client to work with to build it. It took us a while to figure that out. We built something that I would have wanted in my previous company, and we struggled a little bit to find a good traction. And then we realized, and then I found a big player that loved what we were doing, and we jumped all in with them and built out a back end that really makes their business hum. And they use it to this day nationwide, and they're growing fast, and they're a great partner. Um, that should have been, we should have done that from day one. And I think some of the best software is built in partnership with a lead client that is going to help you figure out what the product really should be versus what you think it should be. And I'm one of those product managers that's guilty of building a product where they call it founder led instead of customer led. We're customer led now. I think early on we were more founder led. I was building something I would have liked to have had. So that's one thing. I also, I think, learned. So you mentioned we're raising capital. I kind of learned the hard. I've raised capital a lot of different ways. My first company, I started it with $85,000 on credit cards. Then I raised capital from a whole bunch of small investors, and then we raised $3 million in venture capital. Um, Probably none of that I would have done over again. I think definitely don't put $85,000 in credit cards. If I were to do it over again, I would create an amazing pitch deck, and I would find somebody to work with that really knows what investors want to see. Build an amazing pitch deck, and then sell your idea on passion. Make sure you have um, a great team to build the product, and and probably an MVP of the product, and then find a key lead client to work with to really build it out and then scale. I think that's something I would try to do it that way if I were to do it over again. And then as far as investors go, again, right now we're set up so anybody listening to this, if you're an accredited investor, you can invest in our company. That's not just, we're trying to look for larger investors, and we have that a lot of that stuff is in the works. We'll get some bigger investors we're talking to that are very interested. Um, But right now, if you want to invest, let me know. You can invest as an accredited investor. Um, I think if I were to raise capital, if I were starting over again, raising capital again, I would start with that pitch deck, and then I would do everything I could to find a champion, somebody who maybe they can put in $100,000, not a giant investment, but they know a lot of people that can come in and really believe in you. That's probably the best way to raise capital, and then start looking for the bigger investors once you have a handful of smaller investors, then make sure there are people that can help you find the bigger investors.
Yeah, that's great advice. And yeah, it's interesting. I think that play between personal passion and kind of getting those external champions, and I feel like that's kind of the line that you've been walking here. Is it takes both, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
started with personal passion about your product and you built what you wish you had, but that doesn't
yep,
always line up with the market. So you've got to have like a good mix of like this is what I want, and then oh yeah, this is what other people want
yep,
as well, or it doesn't work out. And in my day job, we help people build for the Salesforce App Exchange, and we
yeah,
have that same conversation all the time. Like, we need the beta testers in here. We need people that are going to be your front line testing things to say, yes, that's exactly what I want. And
yeah.
I think you probably already know this as well, but that MVP, it's not going to be everything for everybody, right?
Yeah.
You hope to capture like 80 to 90% of what everybody wants, and then we can tailor it to each individual as time goes on. But we're trying to get that like 80 to 90% coverage early on.
I mean, I think that most of the best companies out there, they started with a really minimum product, and then they found a champion client, and then they built what somebody really needs, and then there's somebody else that needs it, and then there's somebody else that needs it, and it just keeps getting better. And you don't need nearly as much capital that way. And some things do require a lot of capital. In some ways, for us to do what we really want to do, we do need a little bit more capital. I think Uber couldn't MVP their way to where they are now. They couldn't just build some really minimal product, and have it work. They had to go out. They basically had to pay drivers to sit and do nothing and wait for the calls, and then go out and get the clients. So it just depends on what you're building. But a heck of a lot of software companies can be built with, hey, we built something pretty cool. Find that client that's like, wow, that is cool, but what if it did this? This is what I really need. Make it work, and then you're off and running. When we were naming the company, I wanted a short URL. I wanted something easy to remember. And I read an article that said that a color and a number combination are one of the easiest things for a person to remember. And then
Okay.
blue kind of said the world. And so what we're doing is trying to connect the whole world of real estate
Hmm.
inspections. So that's what we went with, Blue222. And you say it a couple of times, and it's almost kind of hard to forget.
Yeah, it kind of 222 and blue. They rhyme a little bit. What? So the blue is our blue world, kind of like your hat there, our
Yep.
blue world. And then what's the significance behind 222 other than it's
Well, it
easy to
was a
remember?
number, but at some point I did read that in some, if you Google 222, like numerologists will say, it means move. What does it mean? Moving together and working together and moving in the right direction.
Okay, there you go. Very
Yeah,
good. Uh,
I'm not a big numerology guy. Just FYI out there. I don't want to anybody to think I'm weird, but it's if you are in the numerology, that's what we that's part of where it came from.
yeah. Well, if you've never tried to come up with a business name, I challenge you to do that. It's not easy. So,
Yeah.
kudos to you for coming up with something that's significant on multiple levels there. So, Alan, tell me what's next for Blue 222. Obviously, you're getting investors, you're growing, you're
Mhm.
building out, your agents, your AI. What else should we be looking for from you?
Yeah. So, as I said, right now we've got a product that's managing projects all over the country. We have a ton of vendors on our system that are using the product every day. We have partners that are coming in with significant development capabilities. There's two companies that we partner with here locally that had developers here and over in India as well. So we've kind of got the best of both worlds. And they have really deep benches of developers. So we have a roadmap in place for how we're going to go from where we are to where I mentioned, all like the really serious automation for even the individual realtor. So what we're building, what we're working on in the short-term roadmap is, one, kind of polishing up what's already there, but building AI machine learning. Let's say the AI onboarding. That's kind of one of our first things that we really have to focus on, because it's a tremendous problem for our big clients, not the small clients. The small clients could care less, but the big clients have a really hard process for bringing on vendors and putting them through. So we're building automation that just completely automates that for them, with AI, large language models that'll just roll somebody through the onboarding process with ease. Then we're also building AI machine learning for the matchmaking process. So right now, when you're using our software, you've onboarded your vendors, and you have this console that lets you manage all of your approved vendors. But you can also find every other vendor on the system. So when you're putting a project into the system, it either comes into our system with APIs from your system, or you enter the property address and information and type of service you're looking for. Then our system pulls up the vendors that are available, and then you request bids from those vendors, and our system just takes it from there, collects all the bids, puts them in one place. Then you also have all kinds of management tools. Once it becomes a project, you've got a Dropbox to share documents. You have scheduling tools. You have communication chat rooms, all this stuff, all built in one place, so that you, as that client that's managing 1,000 projects per month, you can just do everything in one place, and everything that can be automated is automated. So that you put the address in, you request bids, click one button, assign the work, move on to the next project. But where we want to go is AI machine learning for the matchmaking. So now once that's in place, instead of searching and pulling up the available vendors in the area that can do that particular kind of service, it's going to look at 1,000 variables instead of 10 or whatever it's looking at now. It's going to be looking at what's their schedule availability, how busy are they versus somebody else, how good are they at this particular type of service or this type of building or whatever. And so that's one thing, and it'll also be much faster than the algorithmic search functions we've got in there now. And then finally, the AI agents. So the next thing, again, it's relatively easy these days now that AI agents have come along, and they're rapidly improving the ability to tap into them. But we don't think of we think of ourselves as an AI enabled company. We are going hard into AI, but the AI companies are the ones they're building the AI. Let them build the AI. We're using the tools that they're building. Amazon has amazing machine learning stuff. OpenAI has amazing agent capabilities, and several other companies. So we're just building the tools that fit into our workflow and make it super easy for the user. So that you're the appraiser that's going down the street, and you just say, look, don't bother me anymore. Bid every project in somewhere in the area, in the range of $450. Go a little lower if you need to, go a little higher if you need to, or if you can, and then they just watch their calendar fill up. And that's where we want to go. Those things are not hard to build these days with the tools that are available. I think what we're doing is just really focusing on making that particular niche work amazingly well in going from literally 1995 technology to Uber level technology, and building something that all of these real estate companies can plug into and go there overnight. We don't compete with, the big companies that are doing 25,000 environmental inspections a month. We don't compete with them at all. We want them to come use us because they can plug into our system, and all of a sudden now they just focus on servicing their clients because our system is managing all of the groundwork and it's getting the right people scheduled for the projects. And all they have to do is review the final reports and get them to their clients. That's where we're going, and those are the big things that we're kind of the big three things we're working on short term.
Right on. So, obviously, the things that you've mentioned are one, if somebody's looking for investment opportunities, your door is open for that.
Yep.
And then two, if you're doing these inspections, uh, it sounds like you'd love to have vendors on your platform. And then, are you looking for end users as well? So, like me as a homeowner, would I get onto your platform and use that?
Not now. I think now that's, we're not really set up for the end user yet. What I would ask is that, anybody out there that runs a real estate brokerage, if you want to be one of the first people to have completely automated, inspection built into your workflow, get a hold of me and we'll work together to help you build that out. Because as I mentioned earlier, the best way to build a great product is to find somebody to work with that needs it. So, and that would apply. So if you're a real estate brokerage and want to really be first to roll something like this out, get a hold of me. If you are one of those large inspection firms that's doing 25,000 inspections a month, for sure get a hold of me because I can make your life so easy, very quickly, and inexpensively. We don't even charge for the client to use it. We just charge 2% per transaction. Now, if you want a bunch of customization, we charge for that. But if you just wanted to use the system the way it is, you can create a client account, onboard your vendors, and process 20,000 inspections a month if you want. Automate a ton of the work that you're doing manually now. So yeah, anything in between. If you're a company that if you're an asbestos management company that's manually scheduling all of I mean, not asbestos appraisal. If you're an appraisal management company that's manually scheduling your appraisals, get a hold of me. Well, you can plug right in and use our software.
Fantastic. Well, Alan, thank you for joining me today. Thank you for sharing with me your vision behind Blue222 and everything that's going on over there. I'll when I post this video, I'll put some contact information down in the description so people can reach out to you and find out what you're doing, and hopefully keep investing in what you're doing and revolutionize the inspection business.
We're doing it.
All
It's
right.
on the way.
Well, I
All
appreciate
right.
it, Alan.
Thanks, Royce.